Hello. So I was listening to somebody brought up a good point about how a lot of times some of the most non-spiritual people are in the highest positions, right? And to be honest with you, that's a problem in the world, but I feel like that's a big problem in the United States of America. I think it's a problem anywhere where there's probably capitalism, but it is a problem in the United States of America. But it's a problem because of the greed. It's a problem because of big pharma. So if you get spiritual people in, especially in healthcare, and they are allowed to operate by what they see in the spiritual realm that's going on with somebody, and they're allowed to operate like that, then that's going to cost a lot of money. That's going to cause the pharmacies to lose a lot of money. That's going to, it's all about capitalism, But the reason I agree with what this person said is because I've been thinking about that a long time. And what I really hate is that a lot of times some of the things going on with you is spiritual, but you go to a doctor and you got to find something mundane to tell them. If the doctor asks you, why do you think this is happening, or whoever it is, then you have to come up with something mundane that you can say to a person. You have to pretend that they're not spiritual at all, because you're supposed to keep your spirituality to yourself in professional environments. And so, you have to come up with some mundane excuse or whatever to give to them for whatever the cause of your physical ailment or whatever it is might be, right? A lot of times when people can't seem to get their head together, a lot of times people struggling with a lot of mental stuff going on. It has to do with the atmosphere they're in too. But then you got people on medication for such a lot of things. So much stuff is spiritual. I'm in healthcare, and I wanted to go into I'm an occupational therapist, but honestly, I've always been interested in psychology. Not psychiatry, where I prescribe medicine, because I was never interested in really prescribing too much of the prescribed medication, for a lot of the mental disorders, But at the same time, I don't have a problem with it either, because I've taken those prescription drugs too. So I don't have an issue with it. But at the same time, I realized that the deeper issue is something spiritual, because it always starts spiritual first. And a lot of us just have to get into the medication, because it's hard to find people in these practices. It's hard to find anybody who's really legit. Even if you find somebody, are they legit? And so it's a lot of times you just have to go along with going to their doctor and get a prescribed medication. Because sometimes it's hard to find all the answers for yourself. A lot of times we find the answers for ourselves without going to the doctor, but not all the time. And then it's hard to find somebody else, so it is a big problem. I've always noticed that. I was interested in metaphysical psychology. I remember a few years ago, I was interested in psychology, but it was more metaphysical type of psychology or something like that, or spiritual psychology. The spiritual reasons why this person might have a mental illness. Not just say, okay, you're bipolar, okay, you are depressed. But why are they depressed? See, why? So people deal with depressions for all kind of reasons, and it don't have to be with a certain event that happened. It's a lot of times somebody could be messing with. That's why I like the spiritual aspect of something. A lot of folks are messing with their heads. And when I'm talking about messing with their heads, I'm talking about in a spiritual way, messing with their heads, trying to control their thoughts, or just messing with their head other kind of ways. You could be dealing with somebody who just want to put all their baggage on you, But it's a lot of spiritual reasons, like schizophrenia. A lot of people are dealing with schizophrenia because they are not really balanced between the so-called spiritual world and physical world. And so sometimes they see a lot of things, they hear a lot of voices, and because we have a lot of stuff put into our subconscious, sometimes we see things when we meditate, when we dream, and when we close our eyes. But you got some people with schizophrenia, the stuff that we see in dreams and the stuff that we see when we meditate or just close our eyes, they see with their eyes open. They hear voices like it's not controlled. Like a lot of stuff is not controlled. The same thing with drug addicts when they supposed to be going crazy, like they went into another dimension. See? So I definitely agree with the lack of spiritual, we're allowing spiritual practices in these type of in those kind of positions. Okay, because when you're in areas, like if you think of certain areas in the world that they are purely spiritual like that, and when I say spiritual, you don't have a bunch of people practicing all different stuff. Like you go to a particular country where it's spiritual. One person from Africa was talking about how it used to be where she was from, where people just wouldn't get sick, and they had healers all over the place, and so. But you know, you have people with a common, like they weren't scattered in their, let me say, in their consciousness either. So it's not like they didn't have a bunch of different beliefs either. But at the same time, if you have the goal of healing, sometimes it doesn't matter if you're into natural types of healing and you're into spiritual healing and you don't have any malicious intent. Even if you believe something different, if your intention is not malicious and you're into natural types of healing, you barely have any sickness. And you barely have mental illness because it will be quickly identified. You know, schizophrenia to me is just like that these people's gifts are not balanced. Like they're able to get into these different dimensions, but it's not a balance. Like they between that spiritual world and the dream world, almost in the physical world, and it's no balance, and it's kind of driving them a little crazy. Okay, it could be driving them a little crazy. You know, and sometimes they get medication to a common one is Prozac, but Prozac, you know, it was usually called for crazy people, but really Prozac is used for anxiety. It's used for people with anxiety, but Prozac was always people thought of as crazy people taking it. Like, no, it's used for anxiety. It's used for stress. Okay, it's used for stress. Okay. And sometimes anxiety could be just too much in stimulation. It could be you're an empath and you don't the energies, you know, it's just too much for you, and you taking in everybody else's energy. It's a lot that goes on with that too. So yeah, I definitely agree. Because like I gave an example of like this woman who's a coworker of mine, right? She was another patient confided in her and said because a patient said that she feel like somebody has been using black magic on her, and that's the reason why she keep having these problems, having these issues, going back and forth to the hospitals and stuff. And honestly, this lady that confided in this coworker, she was a elder Latina woman. The reason why I believe her because she didn't say nothing to me, so I didn't even comment on that, you know. But I'm just saying, in a way, I believe her because that's not uncommon in that community, okay? Because they use Santeria heavy, like they use it heavy, okay? And this was an elderly woman, and she feels like something has been on her since she was a little girl, and I can believe that. But see, because you kind of in the workplace, you have to be non-spiritual and just mundane. You really, you know, it's like she was like almost this patient was talked about like she was just crazy, like she's crazy believing somebody using black magic, you see? And a lot of times what's going on, the problems that's with the world is black magic altogether. Whether it's somebody specifically doing something to you or whether it's the controllers, the dark controllers. A lot of times the dark controllers are using the most black magic on people, you see? But it's like you can't talk about that. It's the most of the stuff, everything that's going on is spiritual, but you have to keep everything physical. That's the problem because you have to be backwards. And see, the issue never gets solved. To me, people never get healed because you have to start backwards. Okay, you have to start physical first, not spiritual. You have to keep the spiritual aspect out of it. That doesn't even make sense when the spiritual comes first. But you got to keep the spiritual aspect out of it. Okay, and you got to go strictly physical and handle it from a strictly physical standpoint. And that's going to keep you going back and forth to the hospital, and that's going to keep you in patterns because you don't deal with it spiritually. But that's how it is in places like United States of America, where it's just capitalism, where it's just always about money, and they don't really care about people getting well. It's just about making money. That's just kind of how it is. You do enough to keep people coming back and coming back and coming back. You know, some of the issues that we have whether it's fibroids, cancer, any kind of cancers, diabetes. Let me tell you, a lot of witch doctors, a lot of just, and I'm talking about real healers. I'm not talking about nobody that just want to, because there's a lot of people that do some dark stuff with magic too, like they use it in a bad way to take energy from other people. I've seen that way too much. I've seen that way more than I've seen healers. That's so unfortunate. But people that's in that type of work, it seems like I've seen them do more stuff to take people's energy than they do, or take somebody's gifts, and then they do healing. It's like they take advantage of people. Okay, and because somebody came and trusted them and paid them their money for services, now they taking advantage of the person that was supposed to be a client of theirs and stealing their energy. That's what some of these practitioners do. So they're wicked. It's like it's so unfortunate that a lot of them are just so wicked that you got to be careful. I'd rather go to a regular mundane doctor sometimes than to some of these spiritual folks, because a lot of them are very, very like, they're extremely like, They use the stuff that they know in a very, very bad way, and they don't think that anything will come back on them. And a lot of times it might not, if they know how to clean themselves, if they know how to clean up afterwards, if they know how to cover themselves, cleanse themselves so nothing bounces back. A lot of times they get away with it. And there's a lot of times, since this is a false matrix, and we have been led by our ego has controlled our body, and the ego is not even real. So we've been controlled by something that's not even real. Okay, because we have been separated from our organic consciousness after birth. Like, instead of a birth date, it should be a death date, because that's when you died. The minute you were born into this world and separated from your consciousness, that should have been the day you died. That's a death date. Okay, that's not a birth, that's a death. Okay? And so a lot of us, because we've been raised in such an area where we've been so indoctrinated, whether it's by parents, whether it's school, or whether it's just all kinds of different beliefs and all kinds of stuff they want to push, all kinds of socialism issues they want to push, or all kinds of programming, we've been so separated from ourselves that we're literally not even alive unless we connect back to our organic consciousness. We're literally not even alive, really. We're not. So yeah, that's all. So that's what I want to say. That a lot of people that do that dark stuff, that do nasty stuff to people, that's even when they are spiritual and they can help. A lot of times, those people, instead of using their knowledge and their gifts in spirituality and spiritual work, instead of using their gifts a lot of times for helping people, they use it to take advantage of people and steal their energy and steal their gifts and steal their birthright. Like, they literally take your birthright. Okay, they take your DNA. Like, they something else. I've seen all of that. That's what a lot of them do. And because, like I said earlier, because we're in a false matrix, there's no consequences. Nothing's going to come back and say, why did you do this to this person? A lot of times, if people like that get consequences, is because some people might have what you call ancestors that will come back and come after that person or whatever. If they might have like some kind of what you call it, spirits that's on their side. I think in this time, we need a lot of spirits I need a lot of spirits on my side. It's hard to find humans on your side. I'm gonna tell you something. It's hard to find humans, people that look like humans. They can't even be trusted. You best to just work on getting some spirits to be on your side. And then some doggone human beings, they can't be trusted for nothing. But yeah, other than that, just a person doing something, and then you yourself might not want to tolerate it, or you might have spirits around you or ancestors that don't like what that person did. That's when they start to get their stuff that's coming to them, because you have spiritual spirits around you, or you have energy around you that wants to that don't feel like that person should get away with what they did. But other than that, if a person just can't defend themselves at all, there's nothing that's going to convict the person that did what they did, because this is a false matrix. There's no consequences for stuff. It's really no consequences. Especially when they know how to do things in a way to cover themselves. They've been practicing for a long time. and they know how to do things in a way to cover themselves up. Honestly, I mean, you know, and it depends on that person also might have protection around them where even if that person didn't like what they did and wanted to get some kind of revenge, that person probably have so much protection around them, and that you have to really, really build up enough energy. You got to build up your universe enough to go after them, because even if they were in the wrong, we're in a very, very corrupt system where the system is on the side of corruption. The system is on the side of corruption. If that person that did something to you, whether they want to sacrifice you or whatever, because it's a lot of sacrificing happening, and they are part of an organization, a pretty powerful organization, and they could be a high rank or something, and they do something to somebody, want to take them out for their own gain, it's going to be hard to even take them down, okay? Because the universe is I said this before, the current universe is on the side of the wicked. And the current universe is on the side of the wicked because the wicked, they utilize, they take more action. They are more, what can I say? They are more consistent with their wickedness. They don't stop. Even when they practicing, they take a lot of action. They put a lot of work into their wickedness, and so that expands that type of universe. And then you got other people that's supposed to be so-called good people, or I don't know what you call them, love and light, and want to keep giving folks the benefit of the doubt and keep wanting to put up with people. Well, then their universe is very little because they keep tolerating it. Like, say, narcissists. I'm only bringing up narcissists because I just brought that up earlier, but to me, I feel like a narcissist is the equivalent to an incubus and a succubus stuff, because the way they drain your energy and the stuff they do is likened to an incubus and a succubus, okay? But, you know, it's like people tolerate that. People tolerate it so much. People want to keep giving them a chance. People want to keep seeing the good side of them. They want to see the good in them. See, the so-called decent people keep trying to see the good in these folks. It's nothing wrong with wanting to give folks a chance. I get that nobody's perfect, but you got to be able to sometimes. Sometimes some people you have to. Just say that this isn't going to be better. I'm not going to look for the little girl or the little boy in this person to find something good about them, okay? If they want to keep showing me their ass, that's how I'm going to take them, okay? That's how I'm going to take them. If they keep showing me they behind, that's how I'm going to take them. I'm not going to look for the little girl and the little injured, the little traumatized girl and the little traumatized boy that needs healing. Because at that moment, what they're doing is they're hurting you. And I don't like using this excuse that, hurt people. Okay, I get that. But, you know, sometimes you have to also realize that, see, this is, once again, decent people wanting to keep giving room to the wicked. Okay, because the wicked, you cross them, they're going to take you out. They don't care about something happened in your childhood. They don't care. They're going to take you out the best way they can. Okay, like what's his name? Tony Montana, whatever is the Scarface character, Al Capone and all that stuff. Okay, they're not interested in your childhood once you cross those kind of characters. Or like a Griselda Blanco. Now these are some people they deadly. But the point I'm making though is that the point I'm making about the wicked is that you cross them. They're not interested in your childhood, and they're not interested in giving you the benefit of the doubt. Some people deserve the benefit of the doubt. A lot of people don't. And the reason why a lot of people don't is because a lot of folks are not interested in changing their behavior. A lot of people are not interested in change. They probably have a potential to change their behavior, but they're not interested. As long as they keep getting what they want, any kind of satisfaction or gratification, they're not interested in changing their behavior. Okay, and then we also got to consider that maybe they might not have been hurt. I mean, people got to stop thinking that every time you see somebody who's just low down like that somewhere something went wrong in their childhood. You got to, because honestly, it's kind of judgy. That's judgy. See, If I say I don't want to be bothered by you, I don't care about what could have been wrong in your childhood to cause you to be the way you are. Because for me, that's being kind of judgmental. I'm going to take you the way you are. Now, if something happened in your childhood to cause you to be like that, that's fine. But everybody that's wicked, it's not because they were traumatized as a child. Sometimes that's the way they are. People got to understand that there are entities. There are lower vibrational entities that hide themselves in human avatars. Let me say it like that. They cloak themselves in human avatars. And the thing is, because most of the time we mostly use our eyes that was created to see the physical world, to see the physical illusion. Okay, because we mostly use these two eyes to see the physical illusion. So we see a world that's not even real. And then you take everybody as being a human being. When really, if you were really to see things, not only with your third eye, but another eye too, you'll see them for what they are. And you'll see that this is not somebody that you need to be worried about their childhood. This thing was born a freaking what you would call a demon. Like they were born like that. That's what, then they came out that womb, that's what they were. Okay, some children, it's almost like, what's that movie called, Damien, that came out a long time ago? I think it came out in the 80s, called Damien. Stuff like that. These little kids, the moment they were born, they were evil. Okay? It ain't nothing got nothing to do with something went wrong with them. So people gotta stop making excuses that every time we see somebody that's wicked, that something went wrong in their life. Because that's why their world, the wickedness, their universe they're actually more powerful than the so-called decent people, because the decent people keep making excuses for the wicked. The decent people keep making excuses for the wicked, and the wicked ain't trying to make no excuses for nobody. They just want to get what they want and do whatever they got to do to get it. And because, I guess because people feel like they deserve a place in the world, their universe is actually expanded, and it'll be hard to really take them down like you want to, because unfortunately, society has allowed them to just get out of control. Okay, but anyway, this started off about non-spiritual people being in healthcare. And I was saying that I agree with that, because a lot of times when I know something is going on spiritual, I can't even express that when I go to the doctor or something. And then it's hard to find anybody. When you do talk to somebody that's a spiritualist or whatever they are, you can't hardly get nothing out of them for what you could be going through. So even with that, it's like, it's like you got to get back to the old days, like, those old school healers. Or go to a different country or somewhere, what they want to call third world. You have those healers over there, okay? You can tell them anything, okay? A lot of witch doctors, you can tell them just about anything, but you got to be careful with them, because it's a lot more of them that's extremely dark and wicked. And then there are that is actually interested in helping people, okay? So it's like people's intentions are so messed up these days that you got to, when you're talking about a spiritualist, a spiritual person in those kind of positions, with the way the world is, they're going to probably do worse than what the hospitals do. You probably going to have more stuff going on with these people than the hospitals, what the hospital doing. It's going to be more damage. Because these practitioners, these spiritual practitioners, like, they use their powers for a lot of, they use their powers to hurt a lot of people, more than you see them use their powers to help people. So, it's almost like you darn if you do and you darn if you do and you darn if you don't, I mean, really, it's almost like it needs to just be a different type of consciousness, honestly. But anyway, I just felt like talking about that, and I'll talk later.